As high net worth individuals with access to sensitive company information, board members are increasingly targeted by cyber threat actors. Awareness of these threats and personal vigilance are essential to stay protected. Welcome to BoardVision, the official podcast of the NACD, the National Association of Corporate Directors. We share perspectives from leading corporate directors and explore what makes boards effective, including how they can help companies prepare for the future. In this episode, Ron Green, a cybersecurity expert and board member at SailPoint and Santander Bank, talks with NACD Program Manager of Digital and Cybersecurity Content, Dylan Sandlin. Together, they discuss personal cybersecurity for board members and the cyber risks that they face. They also dive into how directors can be targeted and best practices for personal digital hygiene. Have you heard about the benefits of NACD's certification program? Today's boards operate in a dynamic and rapidly evolving world. The National Association of Corporate Directors provides directorship certification that sets the standard for high-impact board directors. It's more than certification. This is the premier program, preparing directors to successfully navigate an increasingly complex business and governance landscape. NACD's directorship certification will enable you to demonstrate commitment, deliver confidently, and create real value for your organization. Learn more and apply today at nacdonline.org. And now, your host.
Ron, thanks for joining us for today's conversation. I think where it'd be helpful for us to start is for you to walk us through some of the main cyber threats that individual board members are facing today. What are some of the cyber threats that directors should be most aware of?
I lump it into two categories. One is, as a director, there's a perception that you're a high net worth individual. And so there are different adversaries, different bad guys that are looking to take advantage of your identity, your finances in order to achieve a gain. And then the other is, because of being a director, you might have access to, one, information to what your firm that you're supporting is doing, or two, just general access. So the most prevalent and the easiest one, if you think about attacks that take place in the environment, over 90%, 95% are phishing related or social engineering related. There's actually quite a big list of social engineering attacks that you could be facing. Phishing is more of a broadcast version, but it's because of who you are and the notoriety of the company that you're supporting and the available information about you, you might actually experience spear phishing, which is targeted, refined phishing, and it's phishing that can be built off of other information that's relevant to you or available about you on the internet. The spear phishing it's not real time. You receive an email that tries to get you to engage with it. Because of the priority that you might have, or the level of access that you have to the company or firm, you might experience something more real time, which is like voice-enabled phishing. You might actually experience some deepfake attacks, which they could simulate the sound of the CEO of the company that you're supporting or other members of the executive staff. They could actually, depending on how they're attacking and what they're after, they may choose to emulate a family member or someone that you would trust. Now, there's not like a digital control that you can put on. It's not like there's a digital control, like antivirus is something that it's sitting and it's watching the things happening in the background, and it'll raise its hand and say, hey, there's a virus here. So there's no security control available that will go, hey, you're being deepfaked. There's not technology yet that's available. So you're going to have to look for things that are happening in the background of the scene, the scenery, or is it just weird? It's a weird conversation that we're having. If it seems weird, it probably is weird and is not right. If you feel weird, if it doesn't feel right, use another channel to communicate to that person. That way, if they are being weird, you can have a different conversation about it.
No, but that's helpful because it highlights really that it really does come down in many of these cases to the director's own awareness and judgment about the situation, right?
Yeah.
And the training that they've had to, like you said, move it to an out-of-band communication channel or a trusted communication channel where you can verify that type of information. So
you should trust in yourself. You have, if something doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And so how does a director's personal cybersecurity posture impact the broader corporate risk exposure?
Bad guys or adversaries generally tend to look for information that would be compelling in a conversation or some sort of social interaction with you. So they would look for any social media access that you have, Facebook or the Instagrams or all of those things that you might be connecting with family members or even community members or even members of the organization. They can use that to kind of get an idea of what you like, where you are sometimes. If they can get things that interest you, they might be able to engage you in a conversation. And by engaging it with you in a conversation that you might find interesting, may be able to send over malware or gather more information that will be helpful in some other attack at some other time.
So I'm curious, Ron, in your role, both as a director and also as a chief security officer, did you experience any of these threats that you've described, or have you been around or had to address any of these threats as a chief security officer for the board that you were interacting with?
I will say the chief security officer of the company that you're supporting, the company really does care about, or they should care about what's happening to you because of the potential that you have with your access to the management team and the access to sensitive documents that you may have. Now, I've seen adversaries take interest in different board members in organizations that I've been a part of. And there's one, if asked, we would, a firm, a company should be able to provide information to directors. There are some that have the capacity to give a bit of a security assessment of your environment. Most firms, not all, but a lot of firms will try to have the director engage with the company on technology that they have control of. It's one thing when you have your own devices, a company might actually still support you on your own personal devices. But it's a different thing to manage when you're in your personal systems. Like you might be looking at your personal finances, communicating with friends or family members. Maybe you have a sensitive discussion that you're having with family members. Companies don't want to have insight into that. So they try to separate the director's personal life from the professional life that they have with the company. And a lot of companies provide technology on which to communicate with the company. So the company controls the access to the device. They control the security environment, that the documents, the communication, everything that takes place on that device, they control all of that so that they know that the device that is being used to communicate with the executive management or with the board director or the documents or what have you, it's all under the security standard that the companies have. Now, that's not the case with every institution, but I've seen more and more companies start to provide that technology asset to the director rather than having the director use their own. Now, many do still have directors that use their own, but they create an environment in which the communications or documents are in board books or NYCE, NASDAQ. They all have these environments where it's a controlled environment where the documents aren't actually on the board director's device. They're in a virtual platform that the director has access to. So if something goes wrong, it's not a document that's loose on a personal device that's owned by the director.
So you talked a little bit about how management and the board can kind of work together on establishing some of these security protocols, these controls. Are there other steps that directors and the boards holistically, right? The full boards can do to incorporate personal cybersecurity measures into their board operations? Have you had any experience with boards establishing policies around that to ensure that all the directors on the board are secure from a personal perspective?
I think it's good to have a conversation with the firm and as directors. Occasionally we would bring in a subject matter expert to talk about cyber or physical security, just to have a discussion with the directors so that they are up on some of the latest trends or advances in protective measures or controls or MOs, what different adversaries are using to try and trick or convince board directors to do the wrong thing. So think about a subject matter expert for one of the board discussions. Often you have a board dinner. Maybe it's a good time to bring in a subject matter expert to have a discussion at that point. I know that the NACD will oftentimes provide training, just like this, or insight for directors for them to just have access to and some things to think about. So think about the NACD or other organizations that you're a member of. And then you might want to just have a conversation with the CISO about other things, because they might be thinking about things to share with the board, but they're hesitant just because they don't want to take up the board's time.
So let's say you are a director, right? Unfortunately, something has gone bump in the night. You have experienced an incident. In that situation, Ron, what would you recommend the next steps for that director to be? Who should they report this to? Who should they contact? What is the role of, that individual director? How does the board chair get involved? Do they communicate with the CISO? Can you kind of walk us through if there's a playbook or any best practices there?
Yeah, I would say that's an opportunity to have a conversation with your CISO and the executive team, because all companies are not the same. If you haven't talked about it at all before, I would say you let your chairman and the CEO know that you've had an incident, and then I expect that the CEO would engage the CISO to provide assistance. I know that as the chief security officer, I've been engaged to help directors who've had issues, and it's not a problem. The firm will want to help the director and then also try to get an understanding of what information might have been lost or compromised. Different firms might have different protocols or different things that they're thinking about. So sharing with them that you've had an incident, the incident might have nothing to do with the firm, but then them just knowing that you've had an issue, one, it can help them protect themselves if there's anything that they need to be thinking about. And two, it will allow them to provide you support to help you remediate the issue that you're working through.
So at an individual level, Ron, can you outline some of the best practices for a director looking to improve their personal security hygiene? Where's a good place for them to start, and what are some best practices for them?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that you can do to improve your security environment is to where you can have your platforms automatically update. The reason that's important on your mobile devices, on your laptops, and other technology that you have, if you can enable auto update, your devices should keep current, especially with the volume of vulnerabilities that are found in operating systems and applications. It's gonna increase. So the more that when a company understands that they need to update the mobile device, they need to update an application, if they can just push those updates to you rather than you having to go through the process of understanding the update and enabling the update, it's going to be a lot better for you experience-wise. Then there are security solutions that you should think about. It's common that everyone has an antivirus. There are local firewalls you can put on your desktops and laptops. Some of that can get a little bit complicated, but there are some that are more user-friendly. Password manager, I'd say, is another big, you should take advantage of it. Passwords are a 1960s security control and invention. We're way beyond where it's easily manageable by the average human. Like if you have to write it down, like I've seen Post-it notes on laptops with the password, with the little, sometimes with the one-time password key fob taped to a device, which is, that's just absolutely horrible. And you just shake your head when you see it. But a password manager will, one, allow you by means of a biometric or some other authenticator, use the password manager to enter the password into the application or system that you're trying to put that password in. And then two, it can generate not trivial to guess password where it's overly complex for you to think about. You'd have to write it down. If you think about all of the passwords that you use throughout the day, one of the biggest things it'll help remove or take away is the threat of credential stuffing. And what is credential stuffing? That's when a user ID and password are used for many things. Like if you have the same user ID, like an email address, and the same password for your streaming movie service. And it's the same as your email, and it's the same as your banking, and it's the same as the credentials you use to access a company thing. Bad guys collect passwords that are associated to your user ID, and credential stuffing is they take the same ID and password and they just keep poking it in things to see what it'll open. If you're using the same password a lot, that spells trouble. CISA also has a great website that talks about some of the things that an individual should think about. It's helpful to go and look at things that CISA provides to help individuals protect themselves.
And kind of following that thread there, are there any other resources that you would recommend for directors to stay informed of these evolving threats and these vulnerabilities that, as you mentioned, keep emerging faster and faster? What are some helpful resources that directors should kind of bookmark and reference?
Well, first, I would say you should get like a threat briefing from your firm. The reason why I'd say that's important, it helps you understand which adversaries are top of mind to the firm. The adversary that the firm is concerned about, those would be the same adversaries that might have an untoward interest in you. So be it hacktivists or nation state, understanding what the company is thinking about will help you think about the threat actors that are potentially problematic for you. CISA is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency is a good one. And depending on the service sector that you're in, or if it's financial services, there's like the FS-ISAC, like there's communications ISAC. Depending on the sector that the company that you're supporting is in, the information sharing and analysis centers are a great place to get information from. And you can also, the Secret Service and FBI have local chapters where they share information to corporations or other partners. You can look into participating or getting on the mailing list for these things. So as like bulletins or alerts come along, you're made aware of those. And then groups like the NACD, they have a membership that's made of corporate directors, and they will share information or at least make available information that directors should be aware of to help protect themselves.
Ron, thanks again for joining us for this conversation.
Thanks for having me. It's been a great discussion.
In our next episode, we'll continue our discussion on security, pivoting from cybersecurity towards a discussion focused on directors' physical security.
That concludes this episode of BoardVision. We hope you enjoyed listening. Please subscribe and join us next time. Until then, visit NACDonline.org to stay informed about the latest resources NACD has to offer, such as memberships, certification, national or chapter events, and our content, including reports, articles, and Directorship Magazine. That's NACDonline.org. Thank you for listening.